Well, Vanessa, good to meet you.
Hi, good to meet you. How you doing?
Yeah,
Love your DVDs
I'm
around
doing
back.
well. Yeah, this is part of the collection. Yeah.
Part, I'm sure.
Okay. Um, I
Well,
just wanted to say first off that some of my favorite moments in The Chosen are actually scenes with you, like with Mary and Jesus and their relationship.
oh, thank you.
I find them some of the most emotionally affecting scenes. Like the wedding at Cana is easily that's my favorite episode of season one, easily.
Wow.
And in season two, the when you get up to wash his feet, after giving that little speech about what you kind of miss, there's a
Mhm.
real human connection and a real intimacy between Jesus and Mary that I don't know that I've seen in a lot of films. So thank you for that. And I guess to throw a question in there, how has it been developing that aspect of the relationship?
I mean, you thank me and I thank our writers because that's where it all starts. I think the way they are uh writing this Mary of ours is just beautiful. I remember the first thing that struck me is, wait, what Mary? What Mary am I reading for? Is was when she made the joke in because one of my audition scenes was the one where I'm talking uh to oh my goodness, what was her character's name? I can't remember. I only remember Leslie's name, which was the actor. But I'm telling her like, well, we had a wedding, just nobody came. And she's like, oh,
Right.
and I'm like, well, because um, and I was like, she has a sense of humor. Oh my goodness! Like that was the first thing where I was like, oh, this is unlike any other um uh, show or movie that I've ever seen about where portraying her. I think um I think the writing is it really is pivotal because it has given me a sense of a better sense of who she is. I think I always viewed her as this, you know, vulnerable female, very what do you call it? Like fragile, you know. She's always portrayed with her son either when he's a baby or when he's brought down from the cross. So we miss their interactions in between, right? And as a mother, I can tell you, I mean, she the pietà is, she grabs him like she's holding a newborn baby because they never cease to be your baby. I mean, I know I have a 4-year old. That's my older baby is 4. I will hold her like that until she's 35 if she lets me, you know. But that's just what motherhood is, it you have a piece of you just walking around and having a life and you're like worrying all the time. And so I think because we get to see um interactions between them that we are not really used to see in not even in the Bible. There's not a lot of talk about how their relationship was. So it really is refreshing to see.
Yeah. Well, in the Bible, Mary, I mean, if you look strictly at the Gospels, Mary doesn't seem to be involved in the ministry of Jesus at all. Like she's at the
Mhm.
wedding in Cana, but that's more of a family affair.
Right.
And then like the next time you see her, with one sort of exception, the next time you see her is at the crucifixion, basically.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
there's a curious story about how Jesus's family tried to stop him from preaching, and it seems that his mother was there. Was she there to try to mediate? Was she there? Who knows? But aside from that, she basically there are no stories about her being part of his ministry. So
Hmm.
I'm curious. You had one episode in season one, and
Hmm.
that's the wedding in Cana. And then did you know at the time that they were planning to bring you back, or did they even know that? Was it something they came up with as as a reaction to the good results they got in that first episode?
I believe what they noted when I got the audition, it was this was a possibly recurring character. And I think they labeled it so because, back then we didn't even know we were going to have a second season. It was just so early. They were hopeful, I'm sure, but they weren't really sure what the future might bring. And so it was just labeled as a possibly recurring because I was only on that episode on that first season. But then, you know, um, when I meet up with them later on, it's just the second season. So
Because it's kind of uncharted territory now, because now
mhm.
you're involved in the Jesus ministry, and there's no roadmap for that. The wedding at Cana, that's in the Bible. We know that
Exactly.
story, but now you're sort of in this uncharted territory. And is that freeing? Does it make you a bit nervous? Like, are we
Very,
which
very
very
freeing. I mean,
okay?
to tell you the truth, it's only a little nerve-wracking when it would be, let me put it this way, it would be nerve-wracking if I didn't trust our writers so much because I know, the, I know what they will craft. Um, um, because a lot of we have scenes that are based on the Bible, definitely, but there are others that they kind of craft based on um, possible what could be possible with certain characters. Of course, we don't know that Big James and Little James had moments together, or that Mary Magdalene went with whoever. All these are they come from their imagination based on what they think might have been possible and plausible at the time. So I trust that whatever they will craft will be, you know, um, will help push the story along and will just
Okay.
aid in all this, right?
Okay. Um, I'm trying to squeeze. I got a couple questions I want to squeeze in here before the time limit's up.
Yeah,
But
I'm trying to be quick.
so maybe I'll ask both questions and you can answer them as you see fit. First of all, it
Okay.
occurs to me that you have okay. There are two challenges with your character that none of the other actors face. None of them, not even Jonathan. First of all, there's the time span. Your character is in a flashback in the first season that takes place roughly 20 years before the main action of the series. And then in The Messengers, you're in a sort of a flash forward that takes place 20 years after the main action of the series.
Yeah.
So you are the only character who's had to cover this sort of 40-year time span with the makeup and the acting older or younger or whatever. So that's a challenge you've had to deal with uniquely among all the
Mhm.
actors. Um, so could you talk about that? But also the other challenge that you face um, in some ways, I think your role is harder than Jonathan's because Jesus, Christianity for centuries has agreed that Jesus is fully human, fully divine. And so when you depict that, the only debate is how do you express that? How do you balance those two things? Mary, different churches disagree as to like was she a sinner? Was she
Yeah.
sinless and all that stuff? And so for you, it's even more complicated in a way, perhaps, because you've got to portray a character where people don't even agree necessarily on
Mm.
what exactly she is, and what is the challenge of? I mean, obviously the writers have input into this, but you're the face of it, and people see you. So how do you navigate that? And I gather season three, going back to Nazareth, might get even more into the personal side of Mary. So
Right.
how would you?
Right.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but about the lifespan of Mary that I get to portray. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, as an actor, like I said, this show has given me so much, just um, eh, challenging scenes, beautiful scenes, emotional scenes. It's just it's a never ending gift. But also, yeah, there's a big responsibility I feel, because of that, because you know, there's a bunch of people who feel like she is, um, I mean, not as important as Jesus, but right underneath Jesus, it's Mary. Um, and then others who feel like she was just another woman. I think if I think the show really concentrates on her relationship with Jesus. And I think that's very smart because um, we might not get to see maybe a lot of my backstory or my personal story, um, you know, maybe mentioned in here and there, like we did in the Christmas special, me talking about going to see Elizabeth, right? Uh, but really what is important for the show is that he had a very special relationship with this woman, because how could he not? She was the only person who knew of his secret, I guess, if you want to call it, from the moment he was born, and the only person maybe who he could have relied on for certain things, right? And so was and so did she, I guess. Did she? Would she? Because he would be the only person who she could have talked about this, or they were the only two people, that they could discuss this matter with. And so that really brings, that really makes this relationship so unique and so strong as well. I I don't know if Mary had more children or not, or I don't get into that, but I think, um, the relationship between these two people is what's important here. And I think they really do a beautiful job at, writing how how a Jewish mother would, would be treating her 33-year-old son. So.
I can sneak one more question in there. One thing I also really liked was the prologue to season two, where you're living with John.
Mm, yeah.
And I mean, that is absolutely based in the Gospels.
Hmm.
And that's also something that we almost never see. And the way that you and John actually address each other as mother and son, and that's how the season began. And then later on in the season, you see how Mary is a part of the group. And when the
Mm.
disciples start arguing, she tells them, like, stop it, boys. I mean, is that also like a fun aspect of the character developing? I mean, is that, I assume that's going to develop over the course of the series, the relationship between Mary and the other male disciples, including John?
I I I want to say yes. I don't know what our writers have in store for us. Like I said, I have full of trust in what they're going to be writing for us. Is going to be super special. But at the same time, it's yeah. I think there's an aspect to Mary's relationship with the rest of the group that has been hinted at, in some moments. Also with the scene with Rama in season two, um, that Jesus is teaching them, you know, like, how would you say that? Like divine, the divine, right? I'm here to teach them how to cope with that, how to, how to, or the struggles that they will be facing by following that or trying to follow that, how to keep yourself sane and how to keep, yourself from doubting yourself, maybe, or because she's gone through this and had to do it all by herself. One day, an angel comes from heaven and tells you you're going to have the son of God, and then what do you do after that? I mean, you don't see her struggling with that. um Learning to be a mother and learning to be the mother of the son of God all at the same time. It has to have been, a real challenge for her. You know, I only have to do one of those things, and it's extremely challenging. And so I feel like there's a lot they can learn from her, um, having had the experience of following Jesus from way before they have, and what a challenge that is. And so that's what she can bring in and teach them, right?
Well, one other thing I'm intrigued by, like Dallas, I think, has talked in the past about how um, he brought Mary back into the show for season two, partly because he was just interested in exploring Jesus's relationship with his mom on a very sort of
Mm-hmm.
human level. And what I find fascinating is that Dallas is an evangelical. Jonathan Rumi is a Catholic. I don't know about you. You don't have to say if you don't want to, but the show does uh, its depiction of the Jesus Mary relationship, I think, does function very well as sort of like bridging those sensibilities, because
Mm-hmm.
Dallas's primary interest seems to be the humanization of Jesus, and that's partly done by focusing on his relationship with his mother. And yet at the same time, by showing Mary, as you kind of put it, um, almost making Mary the first follower, the first disciple, as it were, and by giving her this sort of this role, and showing the way to the other disciples. I mean, that's very conducive to a more traditional view of Mary as well. I think, in particular, of the scene in season two where Mary Magdalene comes back to the camp, and your character takes her
Mm-hmm.
into the tent to see Jesus. And there's a real, I mean, if you're looking for it, and I'm not saying this is what the writers intended, but there's almost this sense of your character, Mother Mary, interceding for Mary Magdalene by bringing her into the tent. Um, and so, could you comment on, like, do people come to you and talking about the way that you sort of, I don't know, balance those sensibilities, or the way that you've made a depiction of Mary that is sort of open and accessible to different perspectives like that?
I think the key here, um, going back to the relationship, is what it means what it means to be a mother, really. Um, because I feel like, and this has happened to me with, being a Latino. Uh, it's funny because when we, at least in Peru, I'm from Peru, um, your parents' friends, you call them uncles and aunts, and they're not they're not your relatives, they're not your blood relatives, but
Right.
they're uncle so and so and auntie so and so. You know, it's the notion of it takes a village, right? Where um, you have more than one person who you look up to as an authority figure. And I feel like her, having a son, imagine them as maybe 10-year-olds or 13-year-olds, and they all come to your house. You feed them, and if they're not acting like they're supposed to, you scold them and you tell them what's what, and they're in your house, and so you act as the authority figure, and you can be loving, you can be strict, you can nurture them. It's a little bit, I think, of that notion of a mother that knows that 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 she has something to share with these young people, right? They are, like we've discussed this, they're new to this. I've been doing this for a while. Maybe there's a thing or two I can share with them that would put their minds at ease and not make them so um or so tense and so, and all these things that where they're clashing against each other, that I could ease those tensions. um so I think focusing on that, focusing on this more experienced woman, let alone Jesus's mother, but just a more experienced woman in the mix. I think it's interesting, you know having her perspective on things is always going to be um, I think calming. I think um, uh, putting things in perspective a little bit more. So yeah, I see why he would find that interesting. I mean, he was the one who wrote episode 3 of season 2. Dallas did.
Right.
And I think he's very in tune with that aspect of, as a dad, but also, because he has older children, of having, kids that they're already leaving the nest, and how you still feel like they're your 3-year-olds, and you wish they needed you as much as they did when they were children. um I think that episode is brilliant in the sense that it really encapsulates everything that this show is about, because yeah, okay, Jesus is performing all these miracles, but we don't see that. We're not we're not in we're not looking at the flashy aspects of this, right? It focuses on the tensions that are growing behind the scenes. And not only that, but get you get to hear from a more mature woman, or I don't know, maybe elderly, because at that moment she was elderly, really, in those times. Um, from an elderly woman and her frustrations, as a mother, her past experiences, and how she's been dealing with this, uh, and you get to hear from her, which is already a little exceptional, in a Christian show. And then it all ties in with how he really still needs her. Um, and so I love that episode. That episode is one of my favorites, not only because I I I
Episode
was
3
just episode 3, where we're
coming
all
up.
around the fire, with the
Oh no.
Warner at the top.
Oh, you mean season 2, episode 3?
Yeah, season 2.
Oh, okay. Because I
Yes.
know that
No,
episode
no,
3
episode 3
in
from season
season
3.
3 is
It is different.
uh,
No.
okay. Well, episode 3 in season 3, I gather, is going to be that's going to be like a big family, or like Jesus's family. The whole Nazareth thing, I gather,
It's
comes up
Nazareth, yes.
there. Yeah.
So, but again, like, I feel like that is um, something that Dallas would be interested in, because of also his family, having kids that are older, and doing their own lives, going on their lives now. So
Okay.
I don't know if I answered your question, but I hope I did.
Well, I was curious about the feedback you were getting too, because you are playing, dare I
Oh,
say, an iconic character. Like Peter and Matthew and so forth. We know the names, but they're not icons in the way that there are icons of them, of course,
yes.
but not quite the same way that Mary is. So,
I'm
even though
I'm
you're in fewer episodes than they are, you're still
uh-huh.
playing a character who might be more visible to or the audience would, I don't know, respond more to what they see on screen, perhaps.
Definitely. And definitely, most of the people that respond to my character are older women, let's put it that way, are mothers,
Hmm.
you know. Yeah, I get a lot of messages from mothers that say, I saw myself so much in that, especially in that episode where I talk about how, my son doesn't need me anymore. And how that struck a chord with every single mother out there, that has children that are now older and leaving the nest, and they are doing their own lives, and they wish they could be, these mothers wish they could be more part of their lives, but they have to let them let them go, and let them pursue their own
Yeah.
interests. And so uh, I think it definitely, like I said, I feel like, independently of what you believe in terms of Mary and her role in Jesus's ministry, or if she was a virgin after she gave birth or not, or whatever those intricacies are, I I don't know anything about that. I only know that this is a woman, this is a human woman who had a child, and, you know, as a mother, there are certain things that you just can relate to, like all mothers can relate to, and even dads,
Mhm.
the
Well, I
nurturing
mean, I
part of
also
it.
love Yeah, I also loved in season two, episode three, just the way it ends with you washing Jesus's feet. Because,
Mm,
and again, I don't know if the writers intended this, but you know that in the Gospels, Jesus washes the feet of his disciples at the Last Supper,
yeah,
and there's almost this sense that, like, Mary as the mother of Jesus, as one of his parents. I mean,
mm.
is Jesus following her example? You know, I mean, because this is
Oh,
the
that's
example that was
beautiful.
set for him when he was growing up. Yeah.
Peter, we got to wrap.
Okay.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that
It
was
was
great though.
it's great talking to you, so I could be here all day. I love it, Peter. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah, I could
it was
listen
great
to it.
talking to you. And I absolutely mean it. Your scenes are easily, like, some of those scenes are easily among my favorites in the whole series. So because you
Thank you, sir.
just the bit in season one where you and Jesus look at each other across the party,
Yeah.
just you exchange glances. I get verklempt watching that almost every time. So it's great. Awesome.
Thank you so much.